Peace, much sought after, but difficult to attain. The United Nations asks that we celebrate peace today and lay down our arms for one day a year. That's a good start. What will it take to extend peace beyond the year? Is permanent peace even possible? Our speaker, the son of a veteran, Jim, has thought about these questions for years. In 2002, he spoke to several groups, hoping to slow the march to war with Iraq. In 2015, he taught a 16-hour class titled The Essence of War, and has taught classes for Peace Jam conferences. Today, he will share the idea, what are the essentials for peace, both among ourselves and for the world. Jim's been a Rotarian for 27 years, the Golden Club. He's been a district governor, teaches Rotary 101, and currently is the district ombudsman. So let's give a big Rotary welcome. Jim Halderman.
Thank you, Sam.
The right to peace.
The right to peace. The Declaration of the Human Rights at 70 is the theme for today's United Nations Day of Peace. I guess the first question I would ask you, are you at peace? Do you believe it is possible? For many, many years, I've been following a website entitled, "Is the Cessation of War Possible?" And I'm proud to say and happy to say that now we're up to 30% of the people believe peace is possible. That means 70% of us don't even believe that it is possible. Is peace possible in the world? The reasons, the negative reasons fall under two categories. We've been doing it forever. Why should we stop now? It's innate in the human spirit. Neither of those are true, but that's for a much later speech. The second question I would ask is, what is peace? Interestingly enough, when I passed out my questionnaire to the beginning of my class, one of the questions is, what is peace? Seemed like a simple enough thing. I didn't anticipate anything coming from that. 50% of the class defined it as an emotion, 50% defined it as an action. 50% of it said, I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel this. Another 50% said, no bombs, no guns, no actions, I'm not hiding. So what is peace? When do we know? And it's a good thing to have an idea of what it is that we're trying to gather. One thing I know about peace and about war, it's a culture. It's an attitude, it's a belief. Just as we were okay with slavery many years ago, we changed our culture. We no longer accept personal servitude. Just as we would not allow women to vote, we changed our culture. In fact, we even now let them in Rotary. And thank heavens we changed the culture around that. People of color could not drink from the same fountain as the rest of us. We changed the culture. So today, one point I want to make clearly is that war is a culture. It too is changing. Three things that I believe that are essential for that to happen that I want to share with you today. Then I want to share some of the phenomenal things Rotarians have been doing for over 100 years. First, it's important that we recognize peace begins in the heart. Peace begins with you in the heart, with you in the heart, with you. Where are you in the heart? In the preamble to the UNESCO preamble, it states that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defense of peace must be. It begins in the mind, it begins in the heart, it begins with us. What good is it to love thy neighbor as thyself if we do not love ourselves? What are we spreading? When we live in a world of negativity, it is easy to find justification. Today, we have the ability to watch the news that meets our belief system. What is our belief system? How do we guide and how do we control our belief system? As Wayne Dyer always said, when you believe it, you will see it. And today, we turn on the news that meets our system. So what is it that we believe, and is it in our heart? Do we share love? When we share negativity, we reap back negativity. Hate creates anger. When we live in hate, when we live in not enough of whatever we value, we spread hate. Negativity too often shows up from our inner emotions. One of the things that I know to be true is that every one of our words, every one of our actions either builds or tears down walls of relationships. Before we speak, before we act, do we ask ourselves, is this beneficial to all concerned? Are our words building better friendships and good relationships? Are our actions fair to all concerned? Peace begins in the heart, number one. Number two, we cannot have peace until we begin to seek truth. What is truth? Where is the truth? Do we live truth? Do we demand truth from others? When our leaders want us to believe something, when our leaders want us to guide us, to control us, everything becomes defined as them versus us. Right versus wrong, good versus evil. The world is full of many shades of colors, of thought, of emotions. Many in this room have come from a rural background. Some of you come from an urban, some come from a rich, some come from a poor. We all come from different backgrounds with different attitudes, which is why when I teach anger management, we always say conflict is inevitable. Violence is a choice. Conflict is inevitable. Violence is a choice. What is the truth? My son was a producer for CBS for many, many, many years and had the opportunity, or not an opportunity, had the task of handling the work for CBS at Ground Zero when the World Trade Center collapsed. He was there watching the second building collapse, doing a lot of the film work. And we talked afterwards, and CBS has a lot of footage of firemen and others carrying goods from the retail stores to their vehicles. Not the image that we knew about. That never made the press. It's now quantified in books later. The very fact that somebody wears a uniform does not make them a person. Seek the truth of the individual. Learn to ask questions. What is real? What is truth? Because we belong to one organization, because we wear one uniform, does not make us who we are. Who we are comes from that point within, from that background of where we come from our belief systems. Ignorance creates fear. Fear creates anger. Anger creates violence. Violence creates war. Violence begins in ignorance. Rule 2 is seek truth. Number 3, we need to realize there is far more that binds us than separates us. We need to begin to look for commonality amongst all of us. We all are after the same thing, for a full stomach, for a feeling of security, for a safety, for friendship. We all want the same things. Tito, the president of Yugoslavia many years ago, underneath Tito in Yugoslavia, Serbs married Croats, married Orthodox, married Muslims, married Turks. They didn't recognize boundaries. They intermarried in everything. After Tito, when he passed away, tribal leaders came. People like the Milosevic who said, "No, wait a minute. Look what these people have done to you in the past. Look what the Turks did to you 700 years ago." And the tribal leaders began focusing on differences, began to look at how wronged you were by the other person, even though we were still at that time intermarried. We didn't mind until the tribal leaders pointed out, by the way, while Milosevic sat in his castle, he had 7 Rolls Royce in his garage. And he would send his people off to do those things. What is the truth about the world? In sales training, one of the most important things is to find commonality. We teach mirroring and matching. We mirror and match to step into another person's environment, to learn that other person, because we know sales is relationship building. So how can we create that attitude of finding commonality? It's amongst all of us. We all are far more alike than are different. Find commonality. We want peace. Governments have not helped us find peace over the millenniums. Religions haven't done much to help us find peace over the millenniums. The only thing that has brought about major change are people. And when we're talking about bringing peace, it's Rotarians that are in the process of bringing peace. By 1914, Rotary was throughout the US, throughout Canada, and was breaking into the Europe. Rotarians were very involved in the war effort, doing a lot of projects, converting school buses to ambulances, taking care of orphans, a lot of projects. But after the war, Rotarians got together and said, what on earth can we do to stop this from ever happening again? Rotarians got together. By 1921 at the International Conference, they adopted the 4th object of Rotary. Now, I'm sure all of you can repeat that with me, right? The 4th object of Rotary, which says, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a fellowship, a worldwide fellowship united in the ideals of service. A lot of service organizations have the word service in their descriptions. No organization has such a phrase as that. Fancy words, nice words. Rotarians are not finished with nice words. Rotarians take action. 1927, we started the youth exchange around the world for the purpose of creating international understanding and goodwill. Soon after, we started GSE, Group Study Exchange, sending business people to the other world for the purpose of creating international understanding and peace. Now we call them VTT, Vocational Training Teams. Throughout the 30s, also we have friendship exchange yet today, where you can make friends with another person in another part of the country. You share homes, you live with them, or you literally just trade homes, again, for the purpose of international understanding. We have international conferences, of which many of you attended. And it's a phenomenal experience of the international conferences, of meeting the people from around the world, talking and realizing we're all alike. So throughout the 30s, there were many articles in the Rotarian magazine pertaining to just that subject. The greatest minds in the world, the Albert Einsteins, the Albert Schweitzers, were writing articles in the Rotarian magazine about how we can create and recognizing the value of the other people. 1939, an article was written on human rights. The first time in the world that those two words were ever combined together. There's been a lot of talk of the rights of the individual, but the phrase human rights was first put together in 1939 in the Rotarian magazine. Let's go a step further, because in the conference, in the International Convention in 1939, there was a resolution. See, by that time, Rotary was throughout the world. Now, how do you deal with an organization where you have clubs and people and members throughout the world that are at war with one another? So resolution 40-15 was written, which basically said, we care not your religion, we care not your government. But if you do not honor the value of human rights, we cannot have Rotary there. The importance of recognizing human rights, not your government, not your religion, but we combine ourselves in human rights. Throughout the war, of course, the fascist countries said there could no longer be such a thing as Rotary in our countries. But unfortunately, for the fascist countries, those people recognized the power of Rotary. So they changed their name. In Spain, you had the singing clubs. In Germany and in Italy, you had the Friday noon lunch club, and you had the Wednesday morning breakfast club. They continue to meet at great risk, but continue to meet because they recognize the importance of what Rotary does. In 1942, the London Rotary Club recognized there were several world leaders hanging out, trying to get away from the fascist guns in London. Meanwhile, bombs were falling in London. But the London Rotary Club recognized that and said, let's gather them together. They gathered together 21 leaders from 21 different nations to talk about what can we do when the guns quiet down? How can we ever prevent this again? That group continued to meet. In the spring of 1943, it was chartered under the name of United Nations Education, Science, Cultural Organization we know today as UNESCO, started by the London Rotary Club in 1943. 1945, we had many Rotarians who were asked, 11 Rotarians who were asked into key positions to create the United Nations Charter. They were creating the agendas. They were working with different countries, working out differences. 11 Rotarians were in very key positions. 45 Rotarians were involved in helping create the United Nations. Going back to the human rights, Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin were very familiar with and honored Rotary in many ways. Eleanor Roosevelt was the chair of the committee that created the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. She was the chair. She knew of the Rotarian magazine's article in 1939. That's where the phrase human rights come from, because of what Rotary has been doing. We now have over 1,000 Peace Fellows. Started in 1999, we educate them on the arts of conflict resolution, the arts of maintaining peace. How do we do that? Through great education. In 2012, 2013, Sakuchi Tanaka, our Rotary International president at that time, started conferences. He had 4 peace conferences spread out throughout the world. Many have taken and followed up with that. There are peace conferences now by Rotarian clubs in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. It's happening. The good news about all of this, and we had a wonderful video that if you all take the time to go on to Rotary Action Group for Peace, there's a fantastic video that illustrates a lot of things that we have done. One of the things it talks about is the truth is, when you seek the truth, you will realize that we are living in the most peaceful time ever today. But how can you tell? How often has it been since you've read the news that say, I'm happy? How long has it been that you've read in the news say, I have a full stomach, I have clean water to drink? You don't read a lot about that. We are in the most peaceful time in our society. There are less people being killed. There are more democracies than any other time in the world. There is less domestic violence than any other time in the world. More than enough to get in front of you through the news media. We are living in the most peaceful time. But to continue this trend, it's taking people like you, like this committee, like all of us throughout the world, connected in the ideals of service, a worldwide organization connected in the ideals of service that will bring peace. But we start with recognize peace begins here in the heart. I must be in peace if I can go out and work for peace. I must ask, what is the truth? What is the truth? And then I must begin to look for the commonality in my fellow men. So my call to action is 3 words. It's very simple. My call to action for you today is to go wage peace. I'm more than happy to take any questions, any comments. Yes.
Question? Gordon, stand.
Seems like the most common source of discord, course, and conflict comes in dialogue and people who refuse to acknowledge that someone else, that they make a mistake when they're engaged with other people. And if 2 people are equally convinced on the basis of their faith that they're correct and that they know the truth, there's no mechanism for resolution in those cases. It seems that unless people agree in the outset that if the other person has evidence that contradicts their own beliefs, that they're willing to change their mind, that it doesn't seem like those conflicts will ever be resolved. That's why we have so often religious wars.
When we're so convinced in our belief systems, how can we change wars? How can we change minds? And of course you can't, but over time, as we grow, as we learn, we have been changing minds. Cultures have changed. And again, thank you for that, because the secret is, what is the truth? I'm going to share something a little that may get people thinking and may ask some other questions. Bottom line is, I would suggest that nobody has ever fought for God, rarely for country. God is the greatest method of combining and bringing people into action. We've never fought for God. When did God ask us to go fight a war? We don't fight for God. But it's the easiest way to rally the people under the name of religion. So religion gets credited for all of the evil yet what's the real issue? The real issue is, where are we in our heart? What do we believe is truth? How do we believe? Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to raise Eisenhower's most famous speech had to do with the growing military-industrial complex and how that would get out of hand in our country and would lead to war. And I wonder if you could comment on, now that we're almost 60 years later, what's happening with that.
Eisenhower warned the world about a war machine, the industry of war. I've talked with friends, and if we could get the U.S. to go to the Middle East and pick up all of the guns and stuff that we've sent over there to cause war, they'd have nothing left but clubs. 30% of our gross national product is war machines. That will change when the people's minds change about war. When no longer 70% believe war is inevitable. And that belief system is supporting an ungodly amount of industry in the war machine. Does that make sense?
Jim, as the responder to you, I want to thank you on behalf of all Rotarians here today on the power of your presentation and the incredible message that we can be the change. We actually can help change the culture through our own actions when we understand what the truth is and we convey that from the inside out, from our heart. That's a powerful message, and because of that, and because of, we want to thank you in a powerful way, we are going to be donating 100 doses of a polio vaccine in your name to help eradicate poverty. And all of those, polio, I'm sorry, and all of those people here who are Rotarians and around the world know that we are this close to eradicating poverty. And thanks to you for contributing to that.
Thank you.
Polio.
Thank you.
I am so used to saying that in my talk. Thank you.